Welcome to Sweet Tea and Tacos. I'm Dave.
And I'm Jen.
And we are today talking about rice. And, rice is a huge thing in Southern cooking and also South Louisiana or Louisiana cooking,
right.
Cajun cooking. And today we're actually in New Iberia, Louisiana, kind of the heart of Cajun country. And we're at Conrad Rice Mill. And we're talking to Mike Davis, the president. Mike, welcome.
Well, thank you. Glad to have you here in New Iberia.
Well, we're glad to be here. And we came across you and doing some research, and it's a neat story kind of about the company and your story. So tell us a little bit about Conrad and your story.
Sure. Well, Conrad Rice Mill is the oldest operating rice mill in America, and it was founded in February 1912. So there were some mills that existed before that, by just sheer perseverance, we've remained and have become the oldest operating mill. The Conrad Rice Mill, we operate under a brand name of Conrico, and that stands for Conrad Rice Company. Mm-hmm. They tried to register it with C's instead of the K's and couldn't do that for some reason. So they changed the C's to K's and very cleverly came up with the name.
Yeah.
So it's been a good name for us. At first, I wasn't too sure what to do with it, but what we do here is principally in New Iberia is medium grain rice. Mm-hmm. There's three types of rice. It's long, medium, and short. Mm-hmm. Short grain tends to be out on California. Long grain is the nation's favorite, but medium grain is a favorite among the Cajun culture within this area down here, the parishes that we consider to be Acadiana.
Right.
And what it is it doesn't cook real sticky, but it has a little more glutinous contributions or attributes than long grain. Long grain tends to be drier, spread out more. Medium grain just to be a little stickier, and then short grain real sticky.
Right.
Gotcha.
So that's what they like here. But it's interesting. As soon as you go 25, 30 miles east of here, like the Baton Rouge, the Mississippi River, it switches to long grain.
Interesting. Yeah.
As soon as you hit the Sabine River, go into Texas to the west, long grain. Mm. And long grain is now becoming more popular here.
Okay.
So it's and I can't tell you why.
Right.
But still, in New Iberia, Lafayette, our area, it's a medium grain thing.
Gotcha.
Anyway, so one day, as I was mentioning, I have a degree in marketing, and when I got back from the service, it was the first years of integration here in New Iberia, and so I got a job teaching because I was just bigger than the kids. And they thought they needed big people, I guess, at the time. It turned out we had zero problems. Mm-hmm. So I was taking some education courses, but I still wanted to be in business. That was what I was looking for.
Sure.
And one day, while I was working for the State Department of Education, I'd gotten a little bit of an advancement. I came down the street right here behind us, Ann Street, and the mill was sitting there, and I did not know that there was even a rice mill in New Iberia. So I literally just pulled in, and there was two cars there, and the two Conrad brothers, Alan and Julian, were sitting in there. And I told them I had been looking for a business like this. I'd looked for like 2 years. I mean, I went to Guatemala, to Belize, to Hutchinson, Kansas. I mean, you name it, looking for something that was agricultural based, but still has a label selling kind of thing to it. And they told me, said, well, your timing's impeccable. We are just talking about selling.
Wow.
So great. What do you want? How much? I had no money. I'm a teacher.
Sure.
So they told me the amount. It wasn't that terrible a number. So I said, I'll take it. We shook hands on it. I said, give me a week. And in a week, I had gotten two guys to back me. And in 3 weeks, I was in the rice business.
Wow.
So and we had at that time exactly 3 grocery stores here in New Iberia. And the mill had not run for 2 years. But the Conrads are a German family, and they kept that mill just perfect. So it took just about maybe 4 or 5 days of sweeping, and we were ready to go.
Sure.
Wow.
Great.
And that was in 1975.
Okay.
So I'm now in my 49th year here.
Wow.
And like I tell folks, when I bought the mill, I was 29, so I was the youngest rice miller in the United States. I am now the oldest rice miller. All the guys I knew have all retired. They're out on the golf course having a good time.
Yeah.
Well, kind of talk to us about the process of, like, how does the rice, just the process from the rice to the mill, and how does that work?
It's very interesting, actually. There used to be a lot of rice grown here, and we're in Iberia Parish.
Right.
And I'm assuming your listeners know that we don't have counties in Louisiana.
Right.
We have
Parishes, right.
yes.
But it means the same thing, basically.
Sure.
But in this parish, there used to be a lot of rice grown, but it's all gone to sugarcane.
Okay.
And most of the rice has moved further west towards Texas. So what we do is we have a guy who will go out and buy rice for us. We haul it into the mill. We have to then remove the outer hull. It's called the shell, if you will. We remove that, and technically it's called Paddy rice. And as soon as you take the hull or shell off, now it's brown rice. And so a grain of rice with the hull removed, but all the bran layers still intact, is called brown rice.
Okay.
Which is where rice is at its most nutritious, because that's where all the vitamins and the good stuff are.
Okay.
However, there's a lot of oil in the bran layers. So if you're not real careful, you can get something called free fatty acids, which is just basically a fancy thing for gets rancid.
Gotcha.
Okay. So so they take the bran layers off through a friction process.
Okay.
Kind of like how you remove a carrot on a grate. You take a carrot and you grate it up. Well, that's principally how they get the hulls off, the bran off. We don't do that, though. Just about everything we do, we still maintain that it's brown rice. So it's, again, we're like into this doing things. It's a little harder, but really keeping it clean and right.
Gotcha.
So what we do then is that we take our rice products, who have the bran layer still on them, and we do a little technique that lets the water get to the endosperm, the inside, and cooks in 20 minutes instead of 50. Because 50-minute cook is a typical brown rice cook, because the water has to slowly go through the layers and absorb it. But we have a little technique we've learned in the last 100 and some odd years.
Sure.
And what we do then is we flush that rice. We take the rice and we put it in a bag, a specially bag made with a gas permeable barrier in it, and we flush carbon dioxide in it. And remember, back to high school biology, everything is either a plant or an animal, right? So the people don't like to hear this, but the little things that turn into rice weevils and stuff like that, well, they're laid in the field during the growing season. Okay, and under the right conditions, they can hatch. It's microscopic, but it can hatch. Well, by carbon dioxide flushing this rice, we do two things. One, we remove all the oxygen. So if we have at least 70% of the oxygen removed, nothing can hatch, because it has to have oxygen.
Yeah, true.
Okay? But the other thing that happens is that we reduce the worst enemy that food products have, and that is oxygen. Oxygen, remember that bottle of wine? If you leave it out overnight, it turns to oxidation, is what it's called. So by putting our products in this environment, the CO2 environment, it's like canning them, if you will. And we've had wild pecan rice we've stuck away for 10, 15 years. We've cooked. It's perfect. Wow. So anyway, that's what we do a little bit differently. And then we've also gotten into the seasoning business, because we made a bunch of rice mixes.
Okay.
You can see one over here. We have a pilaf that we make, and it's a bunch of different ones. And next thing we knew, we have all these spices. So we started then blending those together. And
cool.
And now actually that's really the bigger part.
Oh wow.
Except I'm talking rambling here. I apologize for that.
Good.
But our seasonings all have rice in them.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, if you're going to do a spice mix and it's got a lot of red pepper and garlic and things like that, you put something in there to kind of not make it so potent.
Right, kind of a filler.
It's a filler, exactly right. Very good.
Yeah.
And most people use like a cornstarch product. That's what 99.9% do.
Yeah.
We use rice flour.
That's great.
That's great.
Because it's a natural product, once again, something we make. We know that corn, some people have corn allergies.
Yes.
And rice is not. It's just non-allergenic. I mean, you can feed that to a baby who's got a upset
Absolutely. It's
stomach.
one of the first foods you give to a baby.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So and it doesn't clump. It doesn't get all yucky.
That's cool.
So we think and we're the only guys that do that, honestly.
Well,
cool.
I love that, because, corn is, I think, one of the most genetically modified crops here in America. And, it's just...
Well, we're real anti-GMO.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
we don't
we are too.
Well, we noticed that. We were doing the research, and we were really impressed by that, the non-GMO and the stance on the pure foods. Talk to us about that.
I'd be happy to. There has been some rice that was genetically modified, and they sent some of it to Europe. And the Europeans sent it promptly right back.
I'm sure they did.
They did not want anything to do with it. And there's no reason for it. They want to take rice and cross it with like salmon jeans. I mean, it's like
Oh, goodness.
Quasimodo food. I mean, why do you want to do that?
Right.
What we like about rice in its natural form is that it is non-allergenic, that it's gluten-free, that it's easy for people to digest. It's just a naturally God-given, well-made product.
Yes.
And there's no reason to mess with that.
I agree.
And so we don't. So we consider ourselves to be a non-GMO company. Everything we make is gluten-free. That's a big deal with us.
Great.
We don't think you need to have that. We don't believe in MSG either.
Yes.
We don't have any products with our name on it that has MSG.
That's great. And that's
Fantastic.
rare, I'll tell you.
Especially in the seasoning blend.
In that
It's very
category
rare.
of
Yeah.
seasonings and Creole seasonings and gumbo and all of that, it's very prevalent. So.
Our best-selling product, the single best-selling product is on the seasoning line is our Creole seasoning.
Okay.
But if you we have two different sizes of our Greek seasoning. If I put those together, there's more tonnage that way. And we have one competitor from, I'm not going to mention who they are,
Sure.
but they have a Greek seasoning as well. But like the second or third ingredient is MSG. And they don't understand that you don't have to have that.
Right.
But it's work. It's hard. And you got to figure out how to make it.
I'm
And how
sure.
can you take flavors? And we've found there's a few things we can do to it that will just knock your socks off and really enhance the flavor of the product MSG is what they call it is monosodium glutamate.
Right.
And my understanding of it is that what it does is it makes the taste buds, if you will, in your tongue salivate more and enhance the flavor.
Right.
It's a flavor enhancer.
Right.
Some people call it accent. That's in the grocery store. Accent is pure MSG. And in the seasoning business, everybody's loaded with MSG except us.
Wow.
So it's one of our little bragging things.
We love that.
Well,
and
we
it
love
gets
that.
us in places that we normally probably wouldn't have gotten into.
Well, that's right up our alley. And our listeners know we're always talking about, read labels. Don't do the MSG if you can help it. Non-GMO, all that.
Well, MSG too is and it's. I mean, I'm not trying. It's a big business, and a lot of
Sure.
people do it. I was always told if you've ever gone to an Oriental restaurant, and there's some great ones here in town, but you wake up the next morning, maybe you have a little dull headache, or you're
Some people
thirsty.
are very sensitive.
You have a
to
reaction to that.
Sure.
So why put yourself through that?
Right. Sure.
You don't need to do that.
it. Sure. Sure.
So let's talk about rice in
Yes,
kind
sir.
of South Louisiana. You've been in South Louisiana for how long now?
I'm 77. I was 4, so
Wow.
a while. I've been here a little while.
Yeah.
Rice is a huge part of the culture and the cuisine here.
It is.
And
Like, do you have a favorite rice dish or kind of in the whole kind of Creole Cajun, repertoire?
Yeah.
What's maybe your
My
favorite?
favorite rice dish is not really a Cajun Creole thing.
Okay.
It's just called green rice.
Okay.
And it's one of my wife's recipes. And it's
Gotcha.
basically broccoli and cheeses and wild pecan rice. Which,
Oh, wow.
Wild pecan rice is our signature product, and it has this nutty aroma.
Okay.
The seed originally came from French Indochina. Now you know it as Vietnam.
Okay.
But when the French were in Vietnam, it was called French Indochina,
Okay.
and that's where this aromatic variety that we have
Yeah.
came from. And there was a guy named Joe Don, Professor Joe Don, with the LSU Experimental Station. Went to Southeast Asia, brought this seed back, started growing it at the experimental station in Crowley. Had this really good aroma, but it would just get to a certain height and would just fall over. It didn't. The stalk was too weak. So he'd crossed that, which is a big deal because rice is a closed pollinating plant. It's not like it's floating, the pollen floats like in
Right.
corn to here to
Right.
there, whatever.
Right.
So he painstakingly crossed this rice, and he made it. It was called Della rice, and he had it in cold storage enough to grow about 10 acres, and nobody knew what to do with it. And I had a partner when I first got started to help. I mean, I couldn't have done anything without him, named Claude Brewer, and he was in the seed rice business, and he knew about this
Oh, wow.
rice. So he got it, and we grew the 10 acres worth, and we coined the name wild pecan rice because it has a nutty aroma. And I guess if I'd been a Californian, I'd have called it, almond rice or something. But being a Louisianian, pecans
Sure,
are what we
pecans
think
are
of.
huge in the
Right.
culture. Yes.
And I will tell you, it literally will fill your home with this most enticing aroma. I mean, it just
That's
brings
cool.
people in. So by using that in these rice dishes, it adds an element that you normally wouldn't find.
Sure.
if I'm going to just eat regular rice, I'm going to do it with gumbo. And there we have like a scoop or two of that, and then we put that on top.
Yeah.
And, so that's kind of my favorite, if you will.
Okay, cool.
Well, what's next for the Conrad Rice Company? I mean, I know you said I liked what your statement on the website about how the kind of the market's moving to this clean, simple thing, and it fits right up your alley. And you guys are kind of getting in some new markets. And
Well, I've been here almost 50 years, as I mentioned to you, and you kind of think you got it figured out, but you really never have it figured out because it just keeps changing. Right? And think back in your lives. Nothing is the same when you start to where we are now.
That's right.
And I really think that's the secret that I'm still working, and a lot of people have retired, is that I'm willing to make the changes. But as you get a little older, you kind of, I don't want to do that. I'm not comfortable with that, but I'm still uncomfortable not changing. I want to change. I want to see if there's not a better way to do it, because there's a lot of smart people out there.
Yeah.
But we've gone from where we started out just selling white rice in this local area to where we developed a specialty food product line. That's the wild pecan, the pilafs, the seasonings, and they're sold through distributors that put them into stores like the Publix chain in Florida, the southeastern part of the United, H-E-B over in Texas, Hy-Vee in the Midwest, Myers up in Detroit.
Wow.
We have these distributors, and they have gotten much more difficult because we had 50 distributors when I started. We're down to like 4.
Wow.
And they've just gotten gobbled up.
Sure.
So now we're working in a more corporate environment, and I have some issues with that because I'm just not a corporate guy.
Sure.
So I'm having to learn how to do that, and that changes. So while that's changing, we also are saying, look, we're sitting here in our Conrico reception center, our Conrico store.
Yes.
We are the number 2 attraction in the Iberia Lafayette area.
Wow.
Number 1 now is way ahead of us. That's the McElhenney's. I mean, they're at Tabasco sauce. But as far as that, we're number 2.
That's great.
A little over 50,000 people come through here.
Oh, wow.
So, but right now you can see it's hot. It's summertime. The tourists are not here. What are we going to do to fill this? So we're starting to try to work doing some sandwiches.
Oh,
cool.
okay.
If you look outside in our parking lot, we got this big grain bin, and we're not using that bin. So I envision that being a restaurant.
Oh, fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I've started making a Cuban sandwich. So if we call it a Creole Cuban sandwich, because it's using our seasoning, not the Cuban seasoning, which is a little more citrusy. Ours is a little more heat-oriented, red pepper.
Okay.
So on Wednesday, it's our hot off the sandwich press day.
Wow.
And I have never done social media before. Somebody showed me how to do Facebook, and they had to literally come and sit there and show me how to do that. So I've been doing that 5 days a week, been making these posts, and I'd be dadgum if it really works.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so on Wednesday only from 11 to 1, we make these sandwiches. And then if we don't sell them all, then we freeze them because they taste really good frozen. And we figured out how to do all of that.
Nice.
But it's really fun, and we're meeting a whole other group of people. We started doing a little bulk section over here. I'm now working on a couple, 2 or 3 other sandwiches that I think will all fit together. And so I'm trying to put something like that that gets more local people coming here.
Right.
And in addition, like this summer, starting today actually, for the month of July, if you've got a school-age child who's from the kindergarten to a senior in high school, they can come here for free.
Oh,
And
okay.
give the tour.
Awesome.
Because we want them to learn about agriculture, the economic energy that's in it. That's a big engine for the state of Louisiana.
Oh, it is.
And we want to take them next door to the mill, and we have a Cajun video that takes 20 minutes to see. We have some people in there seeing that right now. We want them to kind of educate them, but it's not all being nice guy either. If we can get these younger people to know who we are. And remember us, because in just a few years they'll be out of high school and they're having their own families and their own homes. Maybe when they go to the grocery store and they see Conrico, they'll think of it.
Absolutely.
But we got a big time sampling thing going on back there with the coffee and the seasonings, and we make something called Bay Island secret sauce. You got to try that.
Oh man, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I have to tell you. Yeah. My poor wife makes that. We had this couple from they lived in Belize. They were expats that ran a big plantation down there.
Okay. And
they retired. They moved back to Lafayette, Louisiana. Yeah. And they made it for us. And now they're like 90.
Wow.
And they called us up and said, we can't make it anymore. We're tired. So we were able to work something with them, and my wife took that on. But it takes her 4 hours to make
Oh
a
my
batch
goodness! Wow!
of only 19 little bottles.
Wow!
Oh my goodness.
But it's really worth it.
That sounds
sure.
like
You know?
it is.
And we're not changing it. It's going to be and once again, it's wheat free, it's gluten free, it's shelf stable, it's all of those
Yeah.
tag.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's funny how the markets. This is new. It's all this new, clean.
And yet it's old because
Yeah.
it's how people just used to cook and do things. And
Well, you see, that's. I'm glad you mentioned that. I had a grandmother. She was in Fort Scott, Kansas. She was 100 years old when she passed away, and she had this huge garden. In fact, we used to hate to go visit her because she'd put us out there with a hoe, and you go out there and get the weeds and clean. But she didn't know that. But she lives an organic lifestyle.
Yes.
She didn't use commercial fertilizers. She didn't
Absolutely.
spray it with anything.
Right.
If there were some bugs on it, she'd go on the tomato plant. She'd just take them off.
Yeah.
Probably go fishing with them.
yeah.
But so kind of, I guess maybe it was ingrained in us, but that's how we.
Yeah.
So we're really just back where we started from,
Absolutely.
but trying to do it better.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thank you for that. That was awesome. We just learned so much, Mike. We really appreciate your time today, and appreciate getting to come here and check it out.
We're really happy to have you.
Tell people where they can find your products. Where
Sure.
can they find Conrico?
And now that you're on Facebook,
They just look for Conrad Rice Mill,
Okay.
Conrico, Konriko.
okay.
We're got a pretty fair presence there. We have a website, which is secure. That's a good way to, if you can find it. We sell quite a few of the independent stores and some of those major chains I mentioned, Publix and we can't even figure that out. Hy-Vee is located in Des Moines, Iowa. I don't know if you've ever been to Des Moines, Iowa. You would never think those people would eat hot, spicy foods. We sell more of our jalapeno seasoning up there than anywhere.
That's crazy.
I can't figure it out. I'm glad. We're very happy.
Absolutely.
But and it's just so wonderful. The Midwest work ethic. It's just something special. Those folks are just ready to get it, and they work hard. But you can go in those stores, and the nice thing about if you have a store that you shop in all the time, you ask your manager for it, and he'll get it.
Okay.
It's available for
Okay.
him. And
good to know.
they want you to keep coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
so
Well,
we're
talk
lucky.
us through real quick your product
Yes.
line.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we started out as a white rice operation.
Okay.
Right.
We really do very little of that anymore. Almost
Okay.
everything is a brown rice type product.
Okay.
So we have under the Conrico brand, and we had another brand or two, but really we just concentrate on the Conrico. It's Conrad Rice Company thing. So we have quite a few rice mixes.
Okay.
We have like 4 or 5 really good seasoning blends, a Creole seasoning, a Greek seasoning, all MSG, non-GMO thing.
Right.
We make one called Chipotle seasoning.
Okay.
And then we have the jalapeno seasoning. And the newest thing we're working on right now is called gravy thickener. It's called a pasta and gravy and pasta thickener.
Okay.
And instead of using corn, once again I go back to the allergy with people with cornstarch. I've made at our house something called cream of asparagus you put over toast. It's very simple. So you pour the juice into the saucepan and you put some corn starch and water and you mix it up and you pour it in there and you heat it up.
Kind of like a slurry.
You make a slurry, and I invariably either don't put enough corn in it or I put too much, and I get bumps and lumps
Yeah,
and all this
yeah.
kind of stuff. Well, this rice pasta thickener we use, gravy thickener, you just sprinkle it right. If you have it in a can, you just sprinkle it into the liquid, stir it, and it just thickens up.
Wow.
And it doesn't get lumpy, and it doesn't get clumpy, and you can put whatever you have left over in the freezer, bring it back out. It doesn't break down.
That's cool.
And that's our newest thing, and we've been selling it here, really. We don't sell it too many places. And trying it out here, and we got some really good cooks here in South Louisiana.
Yeah.
And we got
No
some,
doubt.
We got some folks that are believers in this
Oh,
product.
fantastic.
That's
Yeah, and
cool.
so I'm saying,
Yeah.
I mean, they believe in LSU and gravy thickener. Can't go wrong with those two things, right?
Absolutely. Well, I would imagine it might even work in lieu of a roux sometimes
Yeah.
in a gumbo or something. I don't know.
Well, I got Californians that tell me, well, we don't make gravies out here. So no, but you eat pasta, right? Oh, absolutely. Don't you make a sauce to go with the pasta?
Just a white sauce is
Exactly.
sort
And you
of
need something to
how you
thicken it.
make a roux.
So that's why we call it gravy and pasta thickener.
Oh, well, that's fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah. So I will send you home with some. I think you'll enjoy
Well,
it.
thank you so much.
We'd appreciate it. We'd love to try it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah.
And that was our interview with Mike Davis at Conrico Rice Company. You can read more about them at conradrice.com. their history, and you can shop their products and find out more about them. As Mike said, he did send us home with a few things. And of course, this was not a sponsored podcast. We had no monetary gain or anything, but he was kind enough to send us home with a few things.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And let's see, what would we, we made some of the wild pecan rice. We fixed that.
We did, like, the
Right
day
away.
we got home.
The day we got home.
And like he talked about, it smelled wonderful.
Oh, it did.
And it tasted
great.
wonderful. Yeah, it was super easy to make, and it
just
didn't get gummy.
No, and some rices will get gummy or sticky or whatever. No, it cooked up great.
I think it was because it's that brown rice, and
Yeah.
they have that special technique and everything.
Well, it was good.
Yeah, we enjoyed that.
And then the next day, because we were on our theme here, I cooked red beans and rice and used some of their Creole seasoning.
Yes, and you also thickened it with this gravy and sauce thickener.
Now, what's interesting about that, and we didn't really talk about that too much with Mike, but we kind of started a thing a few years ago where we started making lot keys on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And we kind of, from those recipes, discovered a lot of times you were using potato starch to help them thicken up.
Yeah.
So we started using potato starch as a thickener and other things.
Right, like a powdered potato starch.
Yeah, so we actually buy it.
Yeah.
When you make the lot keys, it's kind of a byproduct of soaking the potatoes. But
Right. But this is a thickener, you know, that is a similar consistency. But like you were talking about, Dave, sometimes that potato starch can taste like raw potato.
right, that's the one thing I've run into, and I've used it in something else.
Yeah. And this, I mean, we just put it in kind of right at the end because ours did need thickening.
It was
up
the
a
quick
little
red
bit.
beans, yeah.
Yeah. And man, you didn't taste it at all. I mean,
No.
it did. And of course, we were eating it over rice. So if it had tasted like rice, that would have been fine. But
Right.
there was no kind of raw, weird taste or anything. It was, I mean, we were really impressed with this product. And it's
Right.
just on the ingredients, rice starch.
Yeah. And then he sent us some of that Bay Island sauce, and we tried some of that.
Right.
It was really good.
Yeah. You put it over the cream cheese.
Yeah, I did
and
that
ate it
kinda.
with like the crackers. You know, that's a real kind of southern.
That's what it reminded me of. Was
thing
that
to
stuff.
do.
Yeah, but it'd be great on fish or shrimp. Or something.
Oh yeah, you could use it all kinds of ways
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
season things, but there is that whole thing that people do at parties where they get the cream cheese out and they put that kind of sauce, or they'll do like a jalapeno jelly, some such.
Yeah. But I had a great trip to New Iberia and Lafayette area. If you ever get a chance, New Iberia is really cool. Lots of foodie things to do.
Yeah. And beautiful too. I mean, we were just amazed. Just the humongous live oak trees. And I mean, it was just a gorgeous area. There are a lot of companies down there that, you know, produce food items.
Right.
As well as the Conrico. And what else?
And well, there's also that area is known for Louisiana has what they call the Boudin Trail. So Boudin is kind of a thing unique to the Cajun area, and so there's a lot. That's kind of the heart of that area. So there's, you know, it's a great little side trip if you want to do something in Louisiana and maybe not New Orleans.
Right. And I mean, New Orleans is fantastic and you can't go wrong with that. But this is a lot less touristy and you just really kind of get a little bit more of a feel for
Right.
the everyday kind of culture, you know, and like we discovered a brand of coffee that's produced in Lafayette that we had never heard of. And, you know, there were just kind of all these little hidden gems that it was just really neat.
And those are fun.
Yeah.
And the Atchafalaya.
Yeah. Or however you pronounce
However
that.
you pronounce
Y'all
it.
need to let us know.
Atchafalaya or Atchafalaya. We actually looked it up, and there's several ways to do it. But
It sounded like there were several ways to pronounce it. But we went to a visitor center, and it's like in this really swampy area.
yeah,
But the visitor center was great. It just talked all about the culture and the food and, you know, just how to live in the swamp and the bayou. And we really enjoyed that a lot.
yeah, it was a neat experience for you and our daughter's first time being in that area.
I think maybe I've driven through Lafayette, but not stayed, not eaten,
Right.
you know, not had the full experience by any means.
Yeah,
So,
very cool.
yeah.
So there you go. That's Sweet Tea and Tacos for this week. Finally back producing some things. And a new thing, we have a support link on our website now. If you enjoy listening and want to help us create some more content, check it out. And there you go. And hopefully we'll have some more podcasts coming very soon.